G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute. Seer's back again, day 2 in a row, special, and we've got Ese joining us today. How you doing, mate?
Well,
Awesome. All right, so this kind of comes off the tails of the episode that we recorded yesterday that you'd actually be watching today, which will be now Wednesday for you. Yeah, that's going to get confusing real quick. Yeah, so this will be coming out Wednesday for you guys, but it's actually tomorrow for us, as in today for you that you're watching the other video right now. Anyway, yeah, real confusing. All right, so based on the episode we did there, Seer and Ese wanted to talk about, and I want to talk about too. Basically, the I guess the birth of what do you call it? The birth of joint operations. So this is the marriage of the air and the ground, I guess, working together. Is that how you guys would describe it?
Yep, for the most part.
All right, so where do you guys want to kick it off then? I'll let you guys take it away.
why don't we start with the A2 and the different ways that it can be used to bomb?
Yep, that's a good spot. So we kind of did go about a bit over this yesterday. So do you want to go over the browser right now and show off those images you gave me?
Sure.
All right. So this is the original concept for the Moab. And basically, as we kind of went over yesterday, this is kind of really for most of it's concussive blast, yeah, you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, Seer, you want to get into the different types of, what this bomb would be used for and the type of effect it would have on the battlefield?
Well, I think a bomb just took over your
Camera.
Nice.
Yeah. Let's see. So the main bombs that you that you have is you have unguided, you have self-guiding, and then you have laser designating, which is guiding assistance essentially, which I talked a little bit about. But those are basically the three main bombs that I believe we're going to be dealing with within Star Citizen.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you on that one.
And the ordinances, each of those ordinances are used in different situations. So if you're packed up with 4 Moabs and you're going to a particular target, if it's hardened or it's a bunker, it's not going to do you any good.
So you're back. Long story short, you're saying that the Moabs for are one set of tasks and the cluster bombs are for another. And I believe C went over yesterday, and I remember saying the cluster bombs were about infantry. Does that mean the Moabs are more about tanks and vehicles?
Moab is about a concussive blast. So let's say that you had a cave system or something where a bunker where there were tunnels, you didn't have direct access to your target. Your target was protected by something that's very difficult to hit. You could drop a Moab and just the concussive blast itself, the sudden loss of what could be called atmosphere. You could suffocate somebody using a Moab. You could potentially, if they're behind and they're protected, just the shock wave itself, the force could potentially harm them. So the idea with the Moab is the problem with the Moab is that it's messy.
Yep.
You will not have any forces on ground anywhere near this thing when this thing is dropped. So this is not something you're going to see really used that often, just because it's not for a battle. It's for you want to soften a target or you want to go. You suspect it's basically you're shooting at a target that you may not even know is there. Put it that way.
So that's different to kind of like what they kind of sold us on in ISC, because they kind of like showed a bunker, I guess, so to speak, dropping it on the bunker and killing all the vehicles on the outside, taking out the turrets and the missile defenses and stuff like that. Is that what it's for? It's for taking out the stuff, not the bunker itself, but the stuff around the bunker so you can enter the bunker? Is that what you're envisioning for the game itself, I mean?
That's what I was envisioning, because I know a real Moab is different. But I mean, again, it's Star Citizen, and like we can't base real life a lot on Star Citizen, and that's why, like, when I pointed out yesterday that, look, I saw the character get one-shotted by one of these. Don't know if it's going to be like that actually, but that looks like it's a size 10 bomb. It's basically quote unquote Moab in a sense, but it doesn't have the same function as a real Moab. It's just it causes a large blast with high damage.
Mhm.
Exactly. Yeah. Large radius and using the concussion of the force of the blast to do damage.
I'm just kind of sitting here thinking, and I know this is completely off the cuff, and I didn't kind of prepare for this, but do you think, like we've seen different munitions types for bullets, so to speak. Like we've heard them talking about different. Recently, they talked about the kind of like the ones for guns and stuff. So like different ones. Do you think that that might be a thing for this? So like just to chuck it out there, like we might see a napalm bomb for
Oh, that's
incendiary
gonna be
Yeah,
nasty.
and burning
absolutely.
stuff. Do you think we may see poison clouds, like a bio bomb that basically just kills all life? I'm just chucking something out
WMD.
there. Yeah, yeah. So
I mean,
just something different because I'm trying to remember, but I remember a couple of months ago they brought out. Do you remember the one post I'm talking about where they brought out some different weapon types? And I'm totally forgot the names of the ammo, but you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I remember they were talking about it for tanks. They were talking about like how they want to have all these different types of ammo, which makes sense because tanks are presented with different situations, armor piercing,
Hmm.
than HE and heat rounds. Excuse me. Ugh. But I mean, I don't remember the post itself, but I can't remember it either. I'm not sure what the post was for Star
I mean,
Citizen wise.
it makes sense though, right? Because a bomb is just a delivery method. That's all it is. What's in the bomb and what it's used for. I mean, it's basically a container packed with explosives.
Hmm.
So, the size of the container, you could put whatever you want in that container. Does that necessarily make sense? A good example is we've had leaflet bombs. Um, there are different things that you can actually put in those pieces. They'll do things like projectiles, potentially. So when you drop one small, same thing as like you envision a fragmentation grenade, same type of thing. Um, you're going to potentially napalm is definitely one. In also low yield bombs when you want to kill people, but you don't want to necessarily damage um, the surroundings too much. The least amount of damage you can do.
Mhm. I'm just trying to look it up here. But yeah, if you guys want to go into what you actually really wanted to talk about, and I'll see if I can find it. But we'll see what
Okay,
happens.
so rather than bombs itself, basically the whole point of this episode is that with the release of the A2, with the fact that we've had the Nova tank for I think 2 patches now, I believe. It came out
Sounds right.
last patch, 3.13 or was it 3. I can't remember, honestly. I've been so busy. But I mean it's been out for a minute. It's been out for a hot
It
minute.
was the
That's all
first
I can
patch. I
say.
think it was the first patch of the year from memory.
Okay, yeah, we'll say it's been out since most of the year. It's the Nova
Yep.
tank's been out. So with that being said, we know that they're pushing Theaters of War, which is a combined arms effort. So this is really just gearing more toward combined arms that we're going to be seeing this sooner than we think. And that's why we're just talking about this. We're just combining the elements. You have the air element and you have the ground element where we don't really the command element doesn't really matter for this thing, but we're not even going to get into command element, no. But so basically, like, the reason why we want to have again the A2 and other ships in the verse is to provide the ground element with the support so that they can do their objective. So
Mhm.
the reason why again you want these different types of bombs is for different scenarios. Like we said, the Moab covers a large area, at least within Star Citizen. When we say Moab,
Mhm.
when I'm talking Moab now within Star Citizen, I'm talking about the size 10 bomb that has a large area of effect and a large explosion. Trade off, I believe, is weight. That's what I believe it's going to be. I think it's going to be the weight and the cost of them, of 100% the cost. And then you have the cluster bombs, which is you don't have a greater area of effect, but you have a small number. Man, I'm burping a lot today. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Excuse me. It's
It's
the
alright.
bubble water, man. But
No more bubble water for you. That's fine.
I love cluster bombs, especially like I do a lot of DCS, so cluster bombs are my go-to because it's one of those things where you don't really need to be that accurate because once you drop it, it's like a shotgun basically.
Mhm.
Once you drop it, it's going to release a bunch of mini bombs and it's just gonna decimate a large area.
Are
Not as
these
large
the
as a Moab, but
are these the ones that scream as they go down? They go,
the
I
screamers.
yeah. Is they them or not? Or have I mixed myself up? I think I've mixed myself up.
No idea. I mean, so the example that we're seeing here on the screen shows you. I'm going to assume that this is dumb ordnance only because of the size of it, right? It doesn't look like it has a tail assembly. It doesn't look like it has um, control arms or servos or motors, anything like that. But the idea of these bombs, we're talking about the birth of joint operations, is that you have different types of ordnance that are going to be used for different situations. But how do you know what you need? How do you know what needs to be laid down and where to put it? And that's going to be that joint portion of it. It's even though I know they're putting in the game that the A2 is going to find its own targets and the pilot will be able to bomb or bombardier. Having um, Why are they doing it? Is there a team on the ground that's actually observing them, that's giving them the target, or are they just lucky and they found that target? So uh, the idea of the one thing that we don't have an image of, though, which is really the point of the joint operations comment, is having something that's guided, having something that can be guided by lays, whether that's by the bombardier or it's someone on ground. But if you have it being the bombardier, that bombardier, you're likely your A2 is going to have to be lowered to the ground to actually see your target.
Hmm.
It's gonna
So
be more vulnerable.
So what about this though? Because like I said in the episode yesterday, it might not be guided as such, but you can at least paint the target. So
Yes.
in the ISC video, they turn the A2 down. He marks an area, then he flies over it, and as he flies over it, he can see it on his HUD and drop it right onto it. So it'd be the same thing. It's just that someone, like, even if they only just paint it once and kind of basically sent the coordinates straight back to you, and you go, right, it wants to be dropped there, and then you can fly in with these dumb missiles. Oh, not missiles,
Actually, I'm
sorry.
sending you a link right now. So then, if you can show that link if you can pull it up right now, that will give them a good idea of what you would be using to laser designate, because that's what this
Yep.
is. That's what you would be using for that. That's a SOFLAM essentially. That's what they use, that has the laser in it, and that sends information so that the pilot can see where that laser is pointing and stuff, and it gives you all the information you need, if I'm
So
correct.
you'd expect something like, well, to me it looks like a pair of binoculars, but you'd expect something like that to eventually
It,
come in
it
the game that goes in the tech slot.
it is a very expensive pair of binoculars, but basically, yeah, a very high tech pair of binoculars. But yeah, essentially,
Yeah.
Knowing the
that
way
I
Star
see something like that.
Citizen, sorry, knowing the way the writing team names things like knickknacks, they're probably going to call these googly eyes and be done with it.
The
So,
freaking the QED.
mm,
They're probably gonna do something like that for people who remember the Mantis. Rip Mantis.
yeah.
I think that this definitely. I think you're going to probably have two different types of ways to lays, but I could easily see them doing it too, where a sniper scope has a secondary section with the laser designator, so that person can look down that scope and put somebody who has line of sight can laze that target. But
So
there's sorry, go ahead, Seer.
no, no, you finish. You finish. Please finish.
So there's other things though. When Seer shows that image, we're talking about information getting to that pilot, and that's the most important portion of it. So when you're calling in to how to say this, if the A2 is looking for a target, right, it knows there's a tank column or whatever it's going to be that it's going after, and it's looking for it. When you have those eyes on ground and they're tracking that target or they're observing it, they're giving you direction, they're giving you speed, they're giving you declination of your approach, because you're in whether that's a human being or whether that's an electronic method, that's instantaneous. That information is invaluable because how it helps you line up what you're going to hit, so that you're most likely going to be successful with the least amount of exposure to your ship.
Mm.
Yep.
Uh, this is a
And
lay
make sure you don't
person.
hit your crew.
Sorry, I got a layperson question just based off on as I said there. Do you want to drop bombs going with the wind or against the wind, or like if there is wind, how are you trying to drop them? Sorry, that just came into my head as you said, were saying what you were saying.
So you might know more about the technical aspect. I assume it's tables like everything else in the military.
Um, I I would assume with the wind, because then it has a better chance, because if when you have gravity, you don't really want to fight against the wind, even if you have a guided bomb, because even with the tail fins, when it's trying to pierce the wind, it probably will fall short of its target. I would
Right.
go with the wind, because then it can either have a better chance of going against it to just go straight down linear, like I think we talked about yesterday,
Yep.
instead of just traveling off course.
Okay.
That's where I percept it. When again, I'm not a pilot. I actually would not know that information, but I have sources where I could find that information.
See, I think of the weirdest thing. Sorry. 3 or
No, no,
4
it's
No,
a real
units.
thing.
it's a real thing.
Yeah, and I don't know the plane side of it, but knowing the ground side of it, there are tables. For example, if you're doing artillery, they'll have, they have ways. Well, now they have computers, but you can calculate out like, okay,
Mhm,
we have massive wind from this direction. We're going to adjust fire, this many degrees, or they fire, and then based on where that round hit, they'll
mhm.
adjust based off that impact. And it's the same thing. You have to have eyes on that impact to be able to say, pull it back this many, mils or whatever it's going to
Forward
degrees.
observer.
Yeah,
Mm,
and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about forward observation. So, like, imagine two and A2, and you have two options, right? You go down, your bombardier drops it. But what if you're in a storm? Okay, what if there's cloud cover? What if there's fog? What if you're a microtech? I mean, that's going to be a nightmare to drop bombs. Um, the idea of having that person on ground to be able to potentially guide something in, and the ability for your A2 to be at a higher altitude because it doesn't need to see this tiny little tank. Like it has somebody on the ground who's going to guide in that munition.
mm.
Yep.
Um, you made me think there for a minute because I was thinking about cloud cover before you mentioned it. Do you think that that'll, like, be a thing that a lot of the bombers may even be up above the clouds and they can't even be seen? Like, if there's, like, there could be a total storm below and they just are above the clouds dropping bombs based on people targeting them, like, straight through the clouds. So they're essentially, like, if the team is good enough on the ground, they're almost blind firing because they just know where the targets are gonna be put. Do you think that will be a thing in the game? And does that happen in real life is my next question too.
With inclement weather, I would prefer laser designation to get the best possible outcome.
Yeah, it's going to be about diminishing returns, or so if your target's big and obvious, you're hitting a base, the tanks are all parked in a yard. You don't need somebody on ground. You might want to have an observer out there to give you feedback of how your hits went, but you don't necessarily need to have it lased because it's a base isn't going to move anywhere. It's going to stay where it's at. You know where it's at. So is it worth having that observer out there? Maybe for information. But if you're going after a moving target or like a tank column or something like that, having eyes on it to be able to say, hey, I have this, they're moving through this area, it's going to be night and day. Otherwise, you're going to be searching the battle space looking
Mm,
for a target and may find it, may not. It might have driven out of the area you just looked in and into another area that you already, you haven't looked at yet. So, yeah, like Seer said, having an observer is in certain situations is almost a must, but it's going to be about what your mission is.
They like he said, it's they're they give you a lot of invaluable information, like also landmarks. I know when I was flying, again, I can't talk from real life because I'm not a pilot. But when I was flying DCS, flying the A-10 with my buddies, if he was in a helicopter and he was able to get in a position where he could see an armor column that I was tasked to bomb, I would literally he would give me landmarks, and I would go based off those landmarks, or if he knew that there was going to be AAA, like we talked about yesterday. And again, for people who don't know what AAA is, it's anti-aircraft artillery. So it's basically flat cannons that can cause a lot of damage to your aircraft. So it only could go so high versus a missile. So a lot of armored units will have some kind of AAA to keep aircraft away. This is why you want to be higher than your target, and you don't want to get too close because that AAA will tear you up. I digress. Regardless, that's why you want somebody on the ground giving you that information. So then, if they can guide you onto target without you having to get too close and still at least destroy the target, then you are safe and the objective is still, and you still killed the target essentially.
mm,
Or priority of target. So
Exactly.
you might be observing that column and you've seen clearly the person pop their head out of, actually the tank can't do this because there's no pop your head out of the turret, but you know that there's a commander in one of those tanks. You observed him getting in, and then they begin to roll. That would be your priority target. You would call out the target, whether that's verbally or with some type of digital means or laser sight. But once you take out the commander of that column, or once you take out the heaviest piece of equipment they have, you've degraded their capabilities, and you're more likely to be successful.
Yep.
so a top
One
down
thing I wanted
approach.
to touch up more on now, excuse me, not more on now was when we talk about laser designation, there's different types, different times you're going to want that, and the different types of bombs that go with it. So, oh, I shouldn't say the different types, but the different characteristics. Like you have JDAMs, then you have GBUs, and GBUs are naturally they are laser guided bombs. That's what a GBU is, versus a JDAM, which is a dumb bomb with a kit on it to make it smart. basically. But the trade-off is that since a JDAM is a dumb bomb, it's inherently going to be a lot smaller and lighter versus a standard GBU. They're usually they start, I believe, at 2,000. They have GBU 12s, and I think they have GBU. I think they might have GBU 8s. I can't remember, but they're like 1,000, 2,000, that kind of stuff. The reason why you want laser guided is mainly for precision and accuracy, because a 2,000 pound bomb can take out almost any tank. T90, T80, definitely T70, T55. Those are all Russian tanks. It could even take on M1 Abrams, even with the reactive armor and stuff like that. But
So that,
it may,
sorry, I have to ask now you've said that. So that footage we saw in ISC of the tank exploding from that one bomb, that was legit. That could actually be a real thing. Because I thought that was too powerful. But you're telling
no,
me
no,
that
okay.
that's a real thing.
So it's a real thing because, okay, again, that in Star Citizen, that was using a Moab.
Mhm.
It was not directly on it. When you're using a laser guided bomb, you're using some form of tracking. You
Right.
track onto the target and it's a direct top down hit, which is how you
Yep.
kill a tank. You want to hit it
Okay.
top down.
Yep.
So that is precision. It is hitting the actual body, not next to it. It's hitting the actual target, and it's armor penetrating as well.
So
So that's
besides
how you get a tank kill with a laser guided. Go ahead.
besides a nuke, there's no actual bomb that could like do that to a tank.
Well, if you have enough ordnance
Besides,
and concussion behind it, you will.
yeah.
If you have enough concussion behind it, you can get a mobility or a weapon kill.
Okay, so
Well,
On
you'd kill the guys inside, but not kill the tank.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Alright.
that's a real
not a
thing.
total kill.
Mm.
So again, for everybody who doesn't understand how you kill a tank, you have a weapon kill, which means you blow up its ordnance, which means basically it's useless. You destroy its mobility, which is its treads. Again, it's a sitting duck; it can still shoot, but it can't move. And then you have you kill the human factor in the tank, so it's again a potato, or you get a total kill, which is the tank is gone, total loss, and the crew's dead with it. So
Mm.
those are the different types of kills you can get on a tank.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
And
also
with
environmental
constantly,
kills
yes.
too.
It's
So
probably. I was just gonna say, can't. No, I better not make that joke.
Like the whole suffocating thing we were talking about earlier.
No, I was
yeah,
singing combo kill from that old thing. So, because the way you were saying it, because you were saying that, like, basically the last kill is a combination of all the other kills.
there's one other factor about bombs before we get into the Overwatch stuff.
Yep.
Having a crew that is communicating with the ground crew too can tell you how you want bombs. Even and I'm assuming this is going to be the same thing in Star Citizen. You can set the altitude of detonation. So if you don't want it to penetrate, you want it to basically hit right before. Um, let's say you had a couple tanks, you don't think you can do what Seer said, hit them directly, but you can let that bomb go off right next to it. The concussive blast, it would have to detonate before it hit the ground because you want the maximum amount of concussive blast. So, you know, you could see it where someone would say, I want a bomb to detonate at 20 meters above, surface. That may also be a thing because that's a real life thing of being able to determine at what altitude those bombs will actually go off.
All right. Well, you mentioned going into the Overwatch and stuff, and the first question I have, just based on some of the stuff you've said, like you said about having an observer. So, say you're sending in some kind of special forces team to go into the actual bunker. Is it common to have, say, one or two people that are also that go down with that team, but they don't go into the bunker? They kind of sit on the
Provide
outside.
security.
Well, I was going to say security, but they're the ones that mark the targets and stuff. But almost like a marking team, and then like the special forces team. Is that a thing, or because to me it seems like they're a separate team, but I could be wrong.
So, okay, so usually if you have special forces on the ground, you'll have your Overwatch, your Guardian Angel, which is still a ground element, which will be a sniper or some form of
Okay,
recon
yeah.
that'll be in a far away position. If you go into that bunker, you want to have a chance of losing comms with them if you go deep enough, and two, like they're still going to provide Overwatch. And then you have your close air support, which is the air element, which provides you the Guardian Angel aspect, where the recon team can't really do much. Like if there's a squad of enemies, they're going to tell you, hey, you got a squad of enemies coming at your position, but there's little to no chance they're going to be able to do much against them. Rather than maybe take a shot off to try to make them disperse and take cover so they can get away, but then their position could be compromised. So that's when like you want close air support to bridge the gap.
So does that
I
observation team go in with the team, or do they come in on their own? Like
There's
how does that generally work?
so there's no like actual I want to say there's no doctrine, but there is. But there's sticking away from that, actually getting away from that portion of it. You want somebody to have eyes on the outside, your six, right? Because you're going in, you're focusing your fire towards an enemy. You're taking, you know, you're going through, you're clearing out the bunker. Having that secondary team, which maybe the observers may not be outside, is a must. You're going to have your secondary, your security element. An observer, though, also very likely because that's going to be the person calling in fire, like Seer is saying.
Yep.
Um, how that team gets there, though, that observer team may have been there way before anyone else got there.
Right.
That observer team could have been on site for days. So the way that I see it going in Star Citizen, based off of some real world information, but to keep it kind of simple gameplay, is if you're going to do this method, what you would do is you would have high aerial reconnaissance. You'd basically get topography, kind of map the surface, right? You want to know what avenues of approach are the best to take. What's going to give you the most cover that you can sneak up on your enemy. Then I could see an A2. If it's just an A2, which I don't see happening, but if it was, A2 lands, whatever it is, 20 clicks away, 50 clicks away, doesn't matter. Out of their back of that A2, roll two RNs, or a bunch of Rangers or something like that, with the team, with an observer team in them, and they go low signature as close as they can using the map that they've already developed, the terrain, knowing the terrain. They go dismounted, then they get as close as they can, and then they start actually observing guiding in and observing what's going on the ground for that A2. So the A2 is as effective as possible. And that's not even talking about bringing your actual assault team, like the team that's going to actually go in. Um, they would be something they maybe it could in real world that's a thing, but you'd add them into there, so maybe there'd be an additional some type of transportation vehicle for them, but you'd also have other ways to drop them off. I mean, we could even get to cool guy stuff, and you could even see like a halo jump out of the back of an A2, and then two observers like going up and taking an observation point above the base.
I'm just trying to look it up. Isn't there a version of the Cyclone? I know there is. I'm just trying to remember what it's called. Um, the one with the tracker on it.
Yes, the RN.
The RNs.
Yeah.
Yeah, the RN. So because that would allow them to scan and pass that scan information back to the A2. Yeah, okay, that's actually really interesting. I never
Also
thought of it
keep
like
low
that.
profile. Because if you have the ability to see the enemy, but the enemy hasn't seen you yet, you can use means to hide your signature. You can turn off your vehicle, turn off all your gear. If you're in a gully or you're in a like just past a wadi, or you're in a canyon, they may not even see you.
Can I put it? It's almost like a terrapin finding stuff for ships. This is kind of finding stuff for the bombers to hit or to protect people. I can see that all. That's the
feeding
same
them relevant
thing.
information.
Yeah, same thing. It's just on the ground. Okay, yeah, cool. All right, that's really interesting. Yeah.
And
Okay.
the idea of the joint operations portion of it is they complement each other, right? So could the A2 bomb without it? Yes, but you combine those two together for the most lethality.
Increase efficiency.
And
Yeah,
then
I can see that.
once the A2 drops its bombs, then it can go into Overwatch.
And that's the next chapter.
Cool. All right, so the next image I've got linked up here, yep, is the man. I'm
That's
terrible.
the
I think
AC-130
I believe you.
Spectre.
Yeah, I believe you called it the Spectre. I'm not good with the names of these
Spectre.
ships. They are not
Spectre
my.
Spooky. It has a couple designators. Has a FLIR pod at the front. 105. That's your yeet cannon. 40 millimeter, and then the I believe 25 millimeter, just a little bit smaller than an A10's 30 millimeter Avenger, but element suppression. Then you have your really big one, which is the 105, decimating everything. Then the 40 millimeter. I prefer honestly, my favorite one's the 40 millimeter. There's just something about it that I enjoy.
So, what ship would you say is most like this in Star System currently?
The Hammerhead.
But in atmosphere, I would say the A2. I think
Really?
Until the
Hammerhead's
A2 comes out.
yeah. I mean the A2, once it would drop bombs, would more than likely be able to take over this role. So if you have those teams that dropped its bombs, soften the target, teams move in, It's just watching the space for tonks coming in and just peppering them. And it may not have enough firepower to take them out, but it's suppressing fire, and it's providing an opportunity to slow their advance.
Yep.
So, and if you're a foot soldier or there's a hardened point, let's say a bunker,
Hmm.
um, you could put enough fire in that to suppress it so that it couldn't return fire
Area suppression. That's what
effectively.
the downward facing guns are for.
I have to ask
100%.
because I thought when I looked at this, I thought of the Redeemer being able to go around a target and kind of shoot inwards with the turrets. But maybe I'm completely wrong there. And
You're not wrong. It's still a gunship. A gunship is a
mm,
gunship is a gunship. The
yeah,
It's a different
A2,
type.
the A2 is more for ground. The Redeemer and the Hammerhead can do multi-role. They can pepper the
mm,
ground, but they also can go after fighters. Remember, the A2 doesn't really stand a chance against a fighter. The Hammerhead and the Redeemer have a way better chance
yep,
of survivability against small fighters, excuse me. But it doesn't have the same type of firepower to take on a tank. Maybe a couple Cyclones or an Ursa Rover, which in my opinion is more of an LAV, an infantry fighting vehicle.
yep.
So it would be able to take on those versus the A2, which is like, oh, a tank, A2, come in hot.
It,
Which
it,
leads us to another point pretty quick here. Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say it's just about the amount of firepower you can put down, and the A2 is just the superior platform, the size of the weapons and the number of them. It's not that the
Yep.
Yep.
Redeemer can't do the role. It's just that the A2 is just going to be better. Now, that being said, there are going to be times where you don't want to use an A2 because you can't. An A2 is going to require somebody watching its back up in the air, up in the
A lot of
sky.
logistics for that ship to work. A lot of logistics.
Mm,
Whereas like 2 or 3 Redeemers can go in with a couple fire teams, and I'm not saying they don't require logistics, but it's a lot simpler, less crew, and less, I don't wanna say hassle, but just a little easier to pull off.
Less
mm,
costly, I like to call it, in terms of manpower. Costly versus costly being manpower is the issue. Because if you don't have enough people, then it's like, can we even use the A2 if we can't use it right? No? All right, let's use something else. But in terms of close air support, that leads us to the new version of the A10 in Star Citizen, which is
the
our
ship that
favorite too.
the ship as you called it before the show that can't aim. Um,
Well, at least that pilot can't aim because
yeah,
look where he's shooting, or
yeah.
she, whatever. But because there are female A10 pilots. So with the Ares, that led us to believe that this would be the second part of the air element, at least being the Inferno. The Inferno has more armor and it I believe the cannon does not shoot as fast as the A10s because I remember John Cruz saying the
Yeah.
RPM is a little bit slower, but this thing still packs a punch, and I believe it's still going to be able to do some decent amount of damage against against a Nova tank. And again, it just with a proper ground team that's able to we call it painting a target, laser designation, painting a target, lasing, all slang for the same thing. Painting a target, it'll just make it easier for that pilot to be able to walk that pilot in on the target and able to hit his backside or the top side to try to excuse me, and to try to take out that tank or at least to immobilize it or distract it, whatever it
Mm.
is.
Yeah,
And it needs to come in low, hot, and heavy.
and
Yep.
the other thing is because it's ballistic, and if they have shields in future, it'll kind of bypass the shield. So I can see that being a lot more useful than the ion, where the ion it does have the ability of range and kind of to snipe, but the shields are going to constantly kind of regenerate, and you aren't going to be able to constantly fly in a straight line. You're going to have to circle around and come back and do it again. And I think in that time, a lot of the shields will regenerate. I think out of the two, this is just my again what I've learned from you guys and the way I believe the gameplay works. The Ares is more better at the ground combat. That's a very lame way of putting it, but where the Ion seems to be more against actual ships and keeping the shields down.
Well, we don't necessarily know that yet. I mean, we don't know if bases or forward operating positions are going to have shields. So if that ends up being a thing where you have larger size, like almost capital class size shield generators protecting something, it may be worth to have an ion to start just eating out their shields so that you can bring in something else. But I mean, that's would the ion be the best ship for that? No, because it's a bespoke forward facing weapon, and you have to do strafes. So it's not. If we're talking ground combat, my opinion is the Ares is the the one that you'd use. But we don't know if the ion's going to have some other purpose.
Honestly, they were. I don't know if it's in yet, but EMP missiles were supposed to be a thing. I wouldn't be surprised they made an EMP bomb.
Yeah,
Take out
That's
diminished
true.
shields.
That's true. Yep. You can say that.
yeah.
100%.
We did talk about it before the episode about the ability for the A2 to be fitted with what is required for that mission. So a lot of people are going to run around with the biggest bombs they can because they're just thinking damage, damage, damage. But a bomb, like if you're using napalm to take out foliage of enemy positions, and you have an infantry squad in that area. There's a variety of things that you can use different types of ordnance for. EMP being, like Seer said, EMP being an excellent one.
If they seriously add napalm, that's going to be crazy. I'm just saying that's going to be nasty.
The I forgot this before, but it came up before when you were talking about the Moab and stuff, and I've just remembered it again now when you've mentioned that. They actually mentioned years ago the torpedoes in a Polaris, which is a size 9. One torpedo is the cost of an Avenger. So how much is a Moab going to cost? Because that's size 10, and that's even bigger than the Javelin, because I believe the Javelin has size 10 torpedoes. So
Well,
what, 5 times as much or 6 times as much? Like, so what was that, like it's a Redeemer just for one Moab? Like,
honestly, I'm not even worried about the cost. I'm more worried about the weight. That's what I'm more interested about. I'm really interested about how bombs are, and when mass is into play, and how bombs, especially of that caliber, really affect the weight and balance of a ship.
But if you're carrying 8 of those bombs and you lose that ship, that's a really expensive exercise. Like, I would go as far as to say that the bombs may be worth more than the ship. And we've heard that before with ships like the Hull E, where they've said the cargo will be worth more than the ship. So I actually reckon this might be another contender for that exact thing. Sorry, Ese, you were saying.
No, I was going to comment on, like, what do you want to come in and what you're trying to accomplish? Because my biggest fear for the A2 is friendly fire. My biggest fear is that I'm being overrun, and this is close air support. But even talking about using bombs, like, I don't want an A2 coming in there to get a tonk off of us. I want an Ares, because if you're just slightly off of that bomb and you hit my position, my whole entire team is dead.
Yeah.
So precision, being the key to that.
It's kind of like a scalpel or a mallet type of situation. You want the precision, not blunt force, so to speak.
Yeah, even if it doesn't take it on the first pass, even if it doesn't take it out in the first pass, that tank commander is going to be panicked that Ares is going to come back and go for another run.
Yep. And his priority will change from you to protecting himself. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. We'll go on to the next one. You guys got a whole bunch here lined up. And this was 2 for 1 sale, this image. So this is the Redeemer and the... Tell me the name of the plane again, because I'm terrible. Was it?
The A-10 Thunderbolt 2, nicknamed the Warthog.
Okay. All right. So tell us about these two.
So the A-10 Warthog is a close support aircraft. Basically, a gun built around an aircraft. It's a titanium bathtub for the pilot. The A-10, it really is. It really is.
The plane can get shredded. Like, it can take shrapnel. It can be shot at.
It can lose an engine and still fly.
Yeah. There have been stories of them losing, like, parts of wings and still landing.
So is this the Ares? What ship is this? So this is the Ares.
Ares
the Inferno? Inferno. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Yep.
Yes. Because 30 millimeter God cannon, essentially, or 30 millimeter Avenger, because that's what it's called. So the A-10, it close air support. That's its job. It has a couple sidewinders on it just in case, but it can carry a wide variety of guided bombs. It can carry like execute. Like, if you could see, that looks like it's his lightning pod, or the targeting pod, not the lightning pod. Right above S's head, like, you can see the lightning pod.
Yep.
And then on the outboard side of the wing, that's a Maverick. That's an air-to-ground missile. I don't know which variant that is, but you have multiple variants. You have the laser guided, you have the TV guided, which is a joke for a poor man's targeting pod, because it has a little infrared sensor in it and you can see things with it. It's a DCS joke and a pilot joke, so some people wouldn't know. But you have a TV one, then you have a you have a GPS guided one. I wouldn't say GPS guided, but the nose will actually lock onto a target and track it all the way to detonation. So you
Okay.
have all these different types and of air to ground ordnance for the A10. It's pretty cool. And then again, you have jammer pods. It can use Zuni, not Zuni rockets. I think maybe I can't remember, but it has rocket pods as well. So literally built to defend the ground, support the ground. It even can shoot Willie Pete's, which is smoke bombs. Set up a smoke screen for them. So
So this
so many things you can do.
so this brings up a couple of questions for me. So straight off the bat, you mentioned all these different cameras and stuff, but there's no known cameras that I'm aware of. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, on the Ares at all, right? So my next thought goes to what ships could actually do that. We know the A2 is getting a dedicated bombing station, but I also think of smaller ships because you've stated that the A2 is too big. So I
It
instantly
will be
start to look at the Vanguard Harbinger and the
Yes.
Gladiator. Now the
Gladiator.
Gladiator is the
Yeah, I
one I
think
lean to more.
well, the Gladiator actually has a camera on the front, or at least it looks like a camera. It's obviously not functioning,
Hmm.
but there is like a circular, looks like on a pivot on the nose, on the
Yep.
mess of that nose. Um, Looking at like which ships will get them. I mean, if it's going to be a bomber, Retaliator probably will have one. I
Hmm.
could see I don't think the Redeemer has one right now, but I could see them adding it to the Redeemer.
Like a module
Because you have the
underneath.
yeah, just like all you got to do is put a little ball on the bottom of it that looks like it has a camera on it,
Do it
and then
again.
all of a sudden,
Do that little cup
yeah,
thing again. Yeah. Just why you did that was
take it,
priceless. Anyway,
yeah,
that's why we
I'm
can't have
trying
nice
not to do
things.
military jokes.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the
Oh boy.
Yeah,
All
before we
right.
get too far off the rails, but no, you're right. Like, there's going to be the Harbinger is a perfect candidate for it just because of the style of ship. Um, but yeah, and that feed where that camera feed is going to, it could being beamed back to a command ship or down to the ground crew. So
Mm,
the ground crew is getting real time assessment of like what's in front of it.
mm. Okay.
Pretty sure that's
Yeah,
part of Link 16.
I could really see that very quickly because I'm just thinking back to what you said about the Harbinger. I could actually, like, if that's a torpedo variant, I could almost see another pod being swapped in, and that pod
Mhm.
just has the eye thing on the bottom of it. I
Yeah.
could see that really easily, actually. Like that would be really easy to do. It's not much different. You
That
could almost have the same pod, except the missiles even come out the same thing. So it's literally it wouldn't even take a lot of work. Instead of yeah, it's very little work. I could knock that out in a couple of weeks. Anyway, sorry, see you were saying.
it's a little work. I can knock it out in a couple weeks. and,
It's worth
and
it.
and that's just to get it to drop a bomb, not all the
Yeah,
glitches.
yeah.
But no, that is correct. I was thinking those two ships as well because those I really liked the bombing aspect of Star Citizen, which is why I invested at least in the Harbinger. And I don't want to get rid of it quite yet because if they actually were to implement dumb bombs or unguided or even some form of guided bomb rather than just a torpedo for that ship, then I actually may keep the Harbinger because, like S was saying, I don't want to bring my A2 at all unless I know I have the proper support to use it, kind of like we just did in the Is the A2 for You. I will never use my A2, at least for bombing, unless I have the support element I need in order to utilize it to
Mm,
maximize my efficiency. I'd
mm,
rather use the Harbinger and maybe put 2 or 3 laser guided munitions inside so then I can just provide close air support with less collateral damage or minimum collateral
and
damage as possible.
and then you're providing cover for any other for that mission,
Mm-hmm.
because then you
For,
just
for
gain
fighters too.
altitude and you just your eyes in the sky, and you have
mm.
the
Yep.
ability to take out incoming fighters and bombers.
So, so just to put this into perspective for Star System, because I'm still thinking about the Ares here as well. That would be a more manual painting. That wouldn't be like it observing with cameras and stuff. That would be more direct vision, but kind of like an I don't know. I hesitant to say an older tech. Or do you think that they may go back and put eyes on the Inferno?
So, I mean, you can a plane doesn't need a camera to get a paint picture.
I see.
Again, in
Yeah.
real life, you have a 4-digit code, they have a 4-digit code, they tell each other once you both have the same 4-digit code plugged in, if they're painting your aircraft, it should be, correct me if I'm wrong, but your aircraft should be able to see what you're painting. And then it's like, yep, I got eyes on it. And then they can guide them right into the target. And wherever they move their laser, the guy in the sky will be able to see and follow suit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a ground guy, so I don't know much about what's actually in the cockpits other than like, the same pictures that everyone else sees, right? But what I can say is that, and without getting into anything too much detail, um, there are means and systems in place to keep everybody aware of what's in that airspace and
Mm.
what's on ground, and you know, not going into real world stuff that,
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
but yeah, there it- a pilot doesn't necessarily need to see the enemy to know the enemy's there, to know where
Yeah.
the target is. In fact, the pilot could actually, that harbinger pilot, even, we said this with the A2, but that they could be at the edge of the atmosphere, just,
Mhm.
basically up that high. And if there's a good observation team down there, they just drop that, they can drop the munition on a dime. It's just
Mm.
about how well they've worked together, if they train together, do they
Trust in
know
your
their systems?
Sorry, I was gonna say
Yeah.
trust in your team.
Yeah. I mean, if
Mm.
there are certain targets that are going to be easy, like a bunker, it doesn't get up and move.
Mm.
Everyone thinks that, oh, the big, that target is going to be, it's going to be easy target to hit. Is it going to be an easy target to take down? Just
Mm.
being able to, or to get to. So like,
Mm.
we saw missile turrets come into play. They're about to arrive.
Mm.
What is your order of effect to targets? Like, are you looking at taking out those turrets first? Then are you looking at taking out the laser turrets? Are you looking at taking out the tanks that are around it, protecting it? Like, what is the order of how you're going to get into that bunker?
Okay, we better move on. Redeemer. Now I see this as like a Hind Black Hawk type of thing. Is that accurate?
Apache, don't not
Apache.
Blackhawk.
It's it's more than that. I mean, yeah, I guess if you had to compare it to, I would
A
say it's
Hind is
probably,
a good one. A Hind
yeah,
is a good
Hind
one.
is
It's
pretty
a
good. Yeah.
perfect example because you can drop troops off with a Hind and it's a gunship. So it's a Hind's a perfect example, honestly.
I
And
mean,
it's
you
all
could,
forward facing. The guns are mainly, well, except for the back one, but they can
well,
all forward face. Yeah.
so realistically, there's no aircraft currently in this category of what this is. It just
Right.
doesn't exist. Um, but yeah, I mean, we're talking about its capability of having its turrets and the mobility and its ability to provide overwatch. This ship, in my mind, is going to be the delivery system of preference for a fire team to go in, because you have those
Mhm.
four jump seats. You have a fairly small crew, a lot of firepower, and then the ability, if they do put in that ability for it to be more efficient with VTOL, the ability to stay over target and just circle, providing overwatch and suppressive fire cover, taking out incoming aircraft as well with that top turret. It's got a lot of potential.
Mm. Okay.
I mean,
I'm very, very excited for the Redeemer. I really am, and I know you are as
I
well, Seer, and
I see
probably.
this as a mid-range escort and border as well. I see this I don't see this being used with the Prowler, but I see this like if you got something going on and you need to like board a ship quick and you're not caring about stealth, I wouldn't really bring a hoplite. I would bring a Redeemer. If I'm like going against an Idris and I'm trying to get into an Idris, I would probably try to bring a Redeemer. Not that it's gonna fit inside of it, but I can get close enough and just have him EVA in and
I
still be able to defend myself.
You guys correct me if I'm wrong. Where with the Prowler is stealth, like kind of more stealthy about it, but if shit hits the fan, it can defend itself, and it tries to do stealth. I think this just goes in loud from the get go.
Yeah, it
Mm,
goes screaming,
mm,
screaming bald eagles.
mm.
I mean, and also we don't know how this will play out in Star Citizen, but we know some of the capabilities of current radar systems and observation and how it works, right? So you get a blip based off of EM, and it's going to be so far off when you finally see it and approach. Um, this can also drop a team off, 5 clicks away. It's never seen. Um, the base never knows it's even there. It's just out in the distance, ready for a pickup or ready for extraction, or ready to provide suppressive fire at the right time.
Mm.
Yeah,
All right. Oh, and that one we've already done. All right. Well, that's everything.
yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Is there anything you guys would like to add before we wrap it up?
We talked about all the bombs, why we would need them in a sense. We talked about the air and the ground. Well, you talked more about the ground element. We talked more about
Mm.
the air element, the uses of the A2 and close air support overall with the Ares, and a little bit about the Redeemer. I think we touched everything. That's basically the discussion we had outside of this video.
Can I throw
Yeah,
something else in there, and you guys can shut me down if I'm wrong here? But what about the ballista and say the Cyclone AA? because
Oh god,
that's
the Cyclone AA was a mess in my opinion.
but can't you can laser target with those as well, but that's I know that's just ground to ground, but also you'll be able to can you essentially laser target another ship and have like a ballista shoot it as well, so you know
That
the
was something
inverse.
that was brought up. I so one of my boys, he brought it up about laser designating and using the ballista for like artillery and stuff, and they said that's something they want to do in the future. So for that question, anything is possible when CIG like figures out what they're doing and not like in a
Mm.
condescending way. Like once they figure out their technology to implement it, they'll probably do it. So I don't see why another vehicle couldn't laze an airplane. Like again, you can, as long as you have a laser pointing at it and you have a missile or some kind of ordnance that it can get guided to it, you can basically kill anything. Honestly, you can shoot a Maverick at another plane if you really wanted to.
So there are jobs that we're joint operations means that you're talking about different, air supporting sea support, like the different levels of support, right? And that's pretty much how all wars are fought now. There's not a way to really do it any other way. I mean, there really never was. But looking at there are jobs that we haven't even seen yet. So there are people like Fisters that are going to go in, uh, people that go in and control artillery fire. So I fully suspect we'll see a ballista with just a different rear piece on it that's an artillery piece, whether that's
Yep.
missiles, whether that's a gun, we don't know yet. Um, same thing like I expect that we're going to see some type of armored personnel carrier type of vehicle, like a Bradley type of vehicle. It could be just a tonk with the turret taken off and seats in the back of it, like, and so there's no turret blocking it. So, but yeah, I mean, all those things they already have most of the assets done. So I could just see them changing the frames to match what they're missing in current assets.
Yep.
And,
Yeah,
Agreed.
but
I
speaking
see
to like,
another ballista coming out. I do.
Yep.
I mean, speaking to the joint operational environment portion of it though, the reason why I like that I'm getting excited is that all three of these ships are incoming very shortly.
Yep.
And it's just going to, and we know that they have missile turrets, so we know they're thinking more about protecting the ground as well. So it seems to me like they're just really getting ready for this push, whether that's theaters of war or whether it's something else. But they're really getting ready to push the ground combat aspect of this, which means all of us with friends that only play FPS games, all of a sudden it's like, hit them up, hey man, get this game. I don't want to fly, spaceships. I'm good. No man, I need you for a fire team.
Mhm.
Yeah, like
All right, I think we'll wrap it up there. I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments below, but the one thing I've kind of taken out of this is I really think it's not going to be like a regular game where you're just that one guy. Like in Battlefield, you almost all run out and you're all individual troops, and there's not a lot of synergy. And the one thing I'm hearing a lot, especially with the discussions today, is there is no one-man army in this game. It is going to be a synergy. It is going to be working together, and I really like that. I know there's people out there, excuse me, that like their solo gameplay, but the games I love most are the ones where people work together. I love that communication and not just socialization, but like the teamwork, the teamwork that makes the dream work. That's one of my favorite phrases. I really like that. So I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments below. Are you excited about that teamwork gameplay? Because it's one of the gameplays that I personally get the most excited about. Is there anything you'd like to hear, see in the comments?
How they
Nah.
like the video?
Say anything you'd like to hear from people in the comments below.
I know we have more military people in the community, so by all means, comment on like how you feel we're wrong, and also, but not just that we're wrong, like what's right, like
Yeah.
what are we not getting right and projecting and thinking, and
What did we
yeah, I'd love to,
miss?
yeah,
What?
exactly,
Yeah.
because
So
we
I was
always,
gonna say, what can we add to it that makes it even more refined and better? The more you add to it, the more heads that get involved, the more refined and polished the idea becomes. All right. Yep. Like, subscribe, all that type of thing. And if you don't like the video, don't like it as well, that's fine. If you want to follow us on Patreon and help us out with gear and stuff, that is very much appreciated as well. He's been Seer the Six, he's been Ese, and I've been Execute, and we'll catch you in the next one.